Hey, good morning, Donald Miller, Donald Miller's Electrical Services. So it is the 19th of April, okay? And we're going to do two parts to this video, okay? The first part is going to be for the people in electrical, okay? So the guys that are coming up in this great trade. At least there is a portion of the trade that is still amazing, okay? And then the second part is I'm going to be answering a question on my video comments. So, first part, if you go back to April of 2022, okay, I was informing apprentices that the good times are not going to be here much longer and to prepare for a harder time. One, because if guys have less than 6 years experience, they've never seen difficult times. So they're not geared for difficult times. It's not in their work ethics. It's not in their mentality. They don't have a clue what you're talking about. So it's hard to explain the mindset you need to have to prosper during difficult times. Because as far as they're concerned, you know, the trades have been amazing. And they have. The trades have been we've done a very good, we've had it good since at least 2014. All right. Between 2015 and 20 were amazing, okay? And we had a really good economic boom all the way up to the pandemic. And then it looked like we were going to get out of it. And, you know, and I don't want to get political, but a completely different mentality came about. And the pain that we're going to be suffering now and into the future is voluntary pain, okay? It is 100% in their control, and they're causing this pain on purpose, all right? Because their ideology, that's what's their ideology, their decision making is causing these problems. And they've openly admitted it, so this isn't really controversial. Jerome Powell talked about it during some of his meetings about the interest rate hikes, okay? But it was coming. We saw this coming back in last year. So, newsflash, guys, if you're in the trade, we're in a recession right now. You're seeing the tides change. They're not going to state it on TV because it's only affecting a group. Commercial's still doing great. It's not doing as good, but it's still holding firm right now. Residential's flat. Residential, we're you know, the strongest are going to survive at this point. So if you have bad habits, if you're not trained correctly, if you have if you don't have your morals in check, and you don't have what it takes to be lean and mean, so they say, you're probably not going to find work in the residential field right now, okay? The residential field is cleaning house, and the best are surviving, and the rest are going to go to other areas of the trade, okay? This happens. It's a cycle. I've been in residential for almost 25 years now, okay? I've seen 3 major cycles happen, and this is going to be my 4th, all right? Which, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It teaches the younger guys how they're supposed to gear their life, because depending on where you are in the residential field, if you're an employee, times like this cut your pay. All right, I can tell you right now, what we were paying mechanics last year, we can't afford to pay them this year. There's way too much overhead. Materials are through the roof, and the free market's just not accepting those numbers anymore. So everyone takes like a 20% hit across the board. That's just how it happens sometimes, okay? So that's like a per hour kind of guy. If you're a sub, Subs feel it too. And being a sub, what you're stating is that you're a journeyman. You have enough education to get yourself to the point where a permit can be pulled either by an employer or by someone else, and then you can do the work through a contract. That's a subcontractor, okay? If you're a sub, your sub numbers are coming down. And your sub numbers are coming down because what you used to be able to make per day a year ago, you're not going to be able to make per day anymore, okay? Or one way or another, the labor is going to become tighter and tighter and tighter. It happens. It's a natural cycle in the free market. If you're in this trade and you're a sub or you're an independent contractor, or like the higher up in the electrical trade you go, the more independent you become. And that gives you the ability to really choose your future. You can kind of go wherever you want, and you can find your nest and really stay there for 20 years. Okay, the more skill and the more knowledgeable you are about the trade, the more flexibility you have to go wherever you want, okay, and work for whoever you want. The less skill you have, the more manipulative you become. And that's in this trade, especially during good economies. The lower skilled guys will become extremely manipulative because they don't have the skill to make more money, so they're manipulating their environment to try to make more money. All right, and that happens, and you know, it's almost acceptable. It's an acceptable part of a good economy. Like, you're going to deal with guys like that. You're also going to deal with guys that are getting paid above their pay rate just to put a body on a job site, and it's during good economies, that's just the way it is. And I got to admit, back in 21, I want to say we were that busy that was happening, okay? I think that was happening up to 22. I think 22 was a slap in the face for a lot of people. And now that we're in 23 and we're in a recession, we're not calling it a recession, those taxes have to get paid this year, and they're going to hurt a lot of people. All right. So that being said, we've seen this coming, and my top tier guys know about it. We've been talking about how to prepare for it. What was it like to live through 08? Because there is different living styles that can make your life a lot more comfortable while you're in the trade. And then there's living styles that can make the trade an extremely difficult environment to survive in. Okay, so when you're in an apprentice and you are working underneath another master electrician, some of these things are taught down. You know, it goes down the generations, okay? And I was taught more than just electric. I was taught how to survive fiscally, you know, monetarily. Okay, because it is a major portion. If you're going to be a tradesman for the rest of your life, and I'm not talking about an employee, I'm talking about you being a tradesman, meaning you are learning the best installation practices for every single thing you do. Not to make money, but to learn so you yourself are more skillful. Okay, so if you are going to be a tradesman and this is your career, you want to learn how to provide for a family, you know, buy a house, okay, have children. These things are actually taught in certain apprenticeship programs. All right, some programs teach you nothing. Some don't even have a program. You're learning by the guy next to you, and you're putting things together to try to get a job. All right, so we're 10 minutes into this video already. I do want to get to this comment. All right, so the comment was by Autumn Bolton, okay, and she's referencing a home built in 1930. Can I add 14 gauge hot and neutral to the, my computer just, there we go, to the knob and tube wires in and outlet, extend the wires to a new receptacle until an electrician comes this week? No. You cannot extend knob and tube, okay? At least that's how it was worded prior to 2017's code book. I usually never recommend extending knob and tube in any way, all right? Knob and tube, the problem with knob and tube is you can't guarantee its safety, all right? The cloth wires, when they were spliced with alcohol torches. Not all solder connections were good connections. So can you do it? Possibly, but I wouldn't. And, you know, if we were to look up in the NEC code book, and yeah, let's do that. Hold on 1 second. All right, so let's do this. I feel like I'm taking an NEC test again. So typically you have about 3 minutes per question. So it says go 394. And that's not the page, that's the article. All right. And we're just gonna do this real quick. All right. I know the previous code book said you're not allowed to extend it in any way, but sometimes they go back and forth. All right, scope. Use is permitted. Concealed knob and tube wiring shall be permitted to be installed in the hollow spaces of walls and ceilings or in unfinished attics and roof spaces as provided by 394.23 only as follows. So 1 is for extension of existing installations, and 2 elsewhere by special permission. And usually in the code, it'll list what the special permissions are. Okay, so let's go to 394.23. In accessible attics, splices shall be soldered unless approved splicing devices are used. Inline or strained splices shall not be used. So can you? Yes. Would I? No. Extending onto an existing knob and tube circuit that's about 100 years old, you just can't guarantee the safety of it in ethical standards. Now, by law, yes, it says that you can do that. Okay. So if you're just asking by law, then yes, you can. Also, I was attempting to determine why an outlet in the kitchen keeps tripping the breaker when the microwave and a coffee pot are going. Very simple. All right. So, first, by NEC code, the microwave is supposed to be on a dedicated circuit. All right. Well, the microwave, as long as it's above the range, the microwave and the range outlet can be the same. All right. 12 gauge, 20 amp. Here you're stating that you have a microwave and you have a coffee pot and it's on a 15 amp breaker. Right off the bat, the 15 amp breaker is illegal. All right. But let's just forget about the legality and we look at the microwave and the coffee pot. Coffee pot, you're probably pulling 4.5 amps. Okay. The microwave is well over, most microwaves fall between 8 to 12 amps. So what I'm thinking is going on is you're tripping that. It's only on a 15 amp breaker. You're tripping that circuit. And depending on your coffee pot, I've seen coffee pots that can get upwards of 8.5, 10 amps. You know, it depends on how fast you're trying to boil that water. All right. So right off the bat, that's why that's tripping. So I noticed that there was a 14 gauge hot and neutral, not knob and tube wiring, and no ground. I was going to put a GFI on it, but the outlet box is too small for the GFI box to fit. So this is a weird one that I think is still present today. Baseboard outlets, and really almost all outlets in the 1920s and 30s, were installed with these metal electrical boxes. The box is very, very small, okay? And they state that if you're going to replace a knob and tube receptacle outlet, that you're allowed to put a GFI outlet in there in its place, okay? And that's common practice around here. They also make 2-prong outlets that are acceptable to be installed on knob and tube wiring. Another way they do it, okay, and this might just be local, I don't know. You can take a 3-prong outlet and then you can caulk the ground hole so nothing can penetrate into that hole. And that becomes a 2-prong outlet. All right. Basically, you're stating that you have, so Romex in the 1950s to 1960s, it's one of the first forms of Romex. It was a 2-conductor without a ground. So it looks like modern wiring. The rubber, it's a rubberized jacket, real small, not like a cloth. And it's in a sheathed Romex. It's usually like almost like a cloth sheath. All right. But when you strip it and you open it up, there's 2 conductors, there's no ground. That was installed. That's like the very first form. And around here, the black silver wire was no ground, and the green black silver wire had the ground, and that's how you could differentiate the two. All right, so the outlet box is too small for the GFCI to fit. So what you have to do is you have to remove the box, you have to cut your baseboard a little bit bigger, and you have to install a modern metal electrical box. You can use plastic if you want to. I'm not a fan of plastic in old homes. I try to stick with metal boxes. It's easier to secure. It just looks nicer when you're done. So that's my personal preference. They don't make a smaller GFCI receptacle. You can purchase a GFI outlet and, I'm sorry, not a GFI outlet, a GFCI breaker, and you can put it on a breaker and then you're good to go. Another trick is you can find the circuit where it's going, and if you're in an attic or a basement, you can cut the circuit, put a box in, put the GFI there, and now the outlet downstream is GFI protected. All right, let's move on. So, lastly, the whole situation is freaking me out because my son is renting a portion of this home, as well as 5 other couples. You got a lot of people in that home. As the home has been set up for kitchens, bathrooms, etc. for each apartment, do you recommend having AFCI, GFCI breakers, since I'm sure the landlord has no plans of rewiring? All right, so most likely you're not going to be able to put AFCI breakers in. All right. AFCI breakers, arc fault circuit interrupters, require the hot and the neutral to remain isolated onto that circuit at all times. And this apartment complex you have did not, or most likely did not, isolate the hot and the neutral throughout the circuit. And what I mean by that is, in knob and tube homes, you have your hot and your neutral, and they're independent and they're going up. This guy's doing all types of stuff over here. This guy's doing all types of stuff over here. All right. And AFCI is basically like a filter that runs through here. Okay. And it's measuring if this needs 5 amps, there better be 5 amps on this neutral, okay? If this balance is offset, it trips the breaker, because the offset is stating that there's a difference in the load and it could be an arc. Okay, that's what AFCIs are meant to do. They're meant to, an arc is basically electricity that's not going back on the neutral. It's going to the ground. It's jumping onto a fan or whatever you have trying to plug in. It's jumping to it, and it's not receiving it on the neutral end. So the moment it's unbalanced, that AFCI trips out. Okay, and with older homes, they never kept these separate. So what they used to do, if this is the neutral, they would bring 2 hots, okay? And you would have the hot on this side and a hot on this side, and this neutral in the middle would share the load. And it was common practice. You could see it in the 3-way switching. It was done in most switching on the second floor. And this neutral was, this hot was using this neutral, and this hot was used in the middle neutral, all right? And if you go and put AFCIs on it, what's gonna happen is your breakers are gonna trip all day long, all right? Not only that, but AFCI breakers do not like certain appliances, okay? The older the appliance, the more the AFCI doesn't really like it. So we often get phone calls about vacuums tripping AFCIs. Older equipment usually will, because there's just an unbalanced load with them, okay? It's not as clean as modern day equipment. So I hope that explained as much as I can for you here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else with AFCIs. You know, the best bet I would tell you to do is open your switches, or have your electrician open up the devices and open up the switches, and just make sure your connections are good. That's rule number 1. And then number 2, if you are having power issues, always run new from the panel in a knob and tube home. Never extend knob and tube, and never use knob and tube for microwaves, recessed lighting, anything that carries a heavy load. Leave the knob and tube alone and run new straight from the panel. It's always the safer bet. So God bless. Enjoy your day out there and take care.